Hello, I'm live. How are you doing? I'm doing it a little different this week. It's Christmas vacation, and I had an opportunity to spend some time with a great friend, helping him start his business. And I got some time away, and I'm over at his place helping him out. But today is a day of my work, and I had a bunch of things that I had to do, and this was one of them. And I've been preparing all day long for you guys. I should say like all week long leading up to this because I've discovered the meaning of life. It's funny. It's such a funny question. And when you're on the spiritual path, you ask yourself this question all the time. What is the meaning of life? And I've been circling it for a while, just kind of like I kind of knew it, but like I didn't really know it so richly as I will be able to explain to you guys today, which I'm excited about. I don't have any of my big diagrams, but I'm nice and close and personal with you guys because I'm just on this cam and I've got my note so I can show you some pictures here, there, and draw things when I have to. We are going to be focusing today on the law of infinite compensation. As with so many of the laws, I've spoken about infinite compensation one way a lot of the time when I just go through the laws, but my conversation about it today is going to be a little bit different, a little bit more in depth, and we may see how it sort of is so alike and connected to some of the other laws that we've been learning about. So, starting with our first row here at the top, we've got the law of one, the law of mind, and the law of polarity. So the law of one states that we came from an infinite nothing or a finite nothing, whatever you want to think of it as, something the possibility of idea and everything came from. But this one thing is the source of all things, and we all came from this same place. All right. We are one with it now, and we were one with it in the beginning, and we will be one with it again someday in the future. That's the law of one in a nutshell. The law of mind states that everything we're experiencing is made of mind, that essentially the mind even created the idea of the nothing. There was no idea, there was no anything when there was just oblivion. There's no ideas, there's no creativity, there's no thought, there's no movement, there's just oblivion, right? So when you're dealing with mind, mind is the something that gives definition to oblivion. So mind is what we are using to determine, thank you, determine everything that we're dealing with on a regular basis, because everything is just based on conceptual ideas. Everything came from ideas that sprung from a nothing. So the law of one is everything is fundamentally one. Law of mind is everything is fundamentally mind. Now, the law of polarity states that essentially because everything is this one sleeping nothing, and also at the same time, dualistically, it is this mind, that it's fundamentally polarized. The universe, God, however you want to think of it, the infinity is fundamentally polarized at its heart. It's sleeping and it's awake. Or you could say it's listening and it's speaking and listening, giving and receiving. So that's the law of one, the law of mind, and the law of polarity. Because of the law of polarity and this inherent nature of the universe, you are a polarized being. We all are inherently and need to consciously recognize our nature and try to neutralize the sting of that polarity. All right, we're moving into the second line. Let's see if I can get it there. All right, we got the law of vibration, the law of relativity, and the law of gender. The law of vibration states that everything vibrates, and everything is moving. The nothing, the universe, the God, whatever you want to call it, could be thought of as a nothing, that's kind of holding place, and a thing that's kind of whizzing around it. And what's that? That's like an atom, right? You got a little nucleus, and you got a thing. So there's a lot of ways to think about these things visually, but of course they're all concepts of mind at the root level of everything. These laws are based on the mind because the mind comes first. What came first, the chicken or the egg? The idea for the chicken and the egg. That's what comes first. We come from idea. Okay. So there's vibration, which are essentially different imbalances that you can take away from the balance of the nothing. The mind is experimenting with various types of imbalance. Let's try it like this instead of it all being just one. Let's try it as a circle. Let's try it as a square. Let's try all these things, right? So there's a lot of different vibrations, but every one of those vibrations is inherently an imbalance. So every vibration inherently has a relativity, a relative vibration to its vibration. So I'm almost dancing like I'm dancing like this, and I'm dance like this, a little bit of energy back this way, energy back this way. There's an energetic balance to any vibration. Okay. Um, and the law of gender states that essentially these two vibrations are the masculine and feminine, which is the created by the nothing and the mind being together as one thing. And we are able to get ourselves closer to the state of oneness when we can find the proper relative vibration to counterbalance our vibration and balance our gender, balance our masculine and feminine. And again, we've talked about this before, but masculine and feminine, that doesn't mean, oh, I'm a boy, so I'm all masculine. I'm not all masculine. I'm half feminine. I'm half masculine, or at least I should be. And that's what everybody should be. Everybody should be half. And when we talk about masculine and feminine, what does that mean? Uh, the wavy lines are the feminine not lines. The straight lines are the masculine lines. The masculine tends to sort of box things in and keep it the way it is, sort of appreciating the thing. And then the feminine energy is kind of like, well, maybe we can make it better, right? So it's just two different energies of sort of appreciation and exploration. All right, moving into and I will take questions as we go through the thing. I'm going to be controlling the board. I don't have Michael here with me today to, do it. But if you have questions as we go through the universal laws, hit me up and I'll take a look when I'm done through these. Okay, so 7, 8, and 9, as I have it, is the law of perpetual exchange of energy. This is another representation of the nothing. And then this is the law of inspired action. And there's the law of cause and effect, which I've represented as this yin yang broken up. So the law of perpetual exchange of energy basically suggests that from oblivion came everything that is. Everything in the cosmos came from nothing. So that nothing is awfully energetic, wouldn't you say? A lot of potential in that nothing. So there is an infinite potential coming from the nothing. And with this infinite potential and this mind that's thinking and experimenting with itself, which we will call inspired action because it's better to think of it that way when you're dealing with it in the real world, being listening to the flow of the universe and acting when it makes most sense. Case in point, the joke about the guy who is on top of his roof because it's flooding and he's praying for God, and the two boats come and the helicopter comes and he ends up drowning because he doesn't take the boat or the helicopter, and he asks God why he didn't save him. And he says, I sent you two boats and a helicopter. So that's the appropriate action. That's the inspired action. Aha, here it is. I prayed for help and there's a boat. There it is. It's that simple. So a lot of times we overthink these things. But what we're talking about is the perpetual possibility that comes from that oblivion, and the inspired intuitive action that comes from the part of the universe that wants to explore in harmony and also bring us on a journey of exploration of ourself as the universe, as God, if you will, but also to bring us through this maze, to bring us back around again harmoniously to the one thing, which might seem like, oh, what? I'm going to get absorbed into one thing one day. You're not going to get absorbed into the one thing at a time when you don't feel like that's a good idea for you. You're going to eventually kind of have learned enough and done enough that you're going to feel like You know what I'd really like to do? I'd like to just be part of the one thing. And that's the journey of the soul. The soul, it travels in a giant torus field. If you've ever seen like an apple, where the from the center of the stem, it starts out, if you go in the center and you could say like right at the smallest point, and we break out and we make this big field. We're journeying far away from where we started, right? We're getting separation from that space, and then eventually we're coming back up again from the middle, and then we come, oh, look, close, close again. And that's the journey of energy and of exploration in general. And we're just sort of like, hey, let's reach out, let's explore. Reach, 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 touch, 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 touch. Okay, cool. I think I got it. All right, I'm about to come in for a landing. And then maybe if you want to go again, you go again. Um, so we got perpetual energy, we've got inspired action. This essentially is creating what you would call cause and effect. Cause and effect, though, literally started right from the beginning of creation. From oblivion comes not oblivion. The first effect, the cause being oblivion. And oblivion was this nothing, and eventually it had to do something, or something had to change. I don't know why. So that's a good question. Why did something have to change? Why couldn't it just be nothing? I don't know. But this cause and effect is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. In Hermetic law, they'll talk about cause and effect, but they don't talk about the law of compensation. It is, I think, a little bit of a degree of a different thing from what they talk about in cause and effect, because it's essentially for me, it's the part that gives rise to infinity the most within the laws, which is why I like to call it infinite compensation. But cause and effect, this one thing begets another thing, begets another thing. As we see with all these laws, it was very easy for me to break it down the way I did. And this is really my only contribution to this work, is just figuring out the way to explain it, like in order to explain it, that kind of suggests things. And this cause and effect is, the nothing to something. Now that there's nothing and something, there's polarity. Okay. Now that there's this fundamental polarity, this push-pull, this imbalance, what we have is the potential for this one vibration, but also many vibrations, and also a relativity to the vibration that was created here. And then this relativity and vibration, these two things can come together to form the gender, which is the balance. So much of what goes on here is just all in line, commensurate with cause and effect. And that's really, I don't want to talk any more about that until we get out to other things, because I'll spoil the law of infinite compensation. So 2 weeks ago we talked about the law of rhythm. We're getting out out of the 9 and getting into 10, and rhythm is sort of a larger patterning, sort of completion here at number 10. Rhythm being, these 3 patterns, the 6 pattern and 9 pattern that's created within here, 1, 2, cause and effect. There's so many little rhythms within this. What I love to talk about rhythm wise is the very simple one that is very fundamental to the universe, which is this rhythm of, in this case, it's black and white parameters. These are the parameters, with gray being in the middle, right? Okay, but then people talk about, oh, it's not black and white, it's shades of gray. Well, these could be thought of as shades. These are the things in between white and black, and there's a lot of them. It's not just shades of gray. It's blue and red and yellow and green, but these are all shades. These are all things within the parameters of these two things. These two things are created by the polarity idea. These things are created by the vibration and relativity idea. All the colors have relativities to each other. If you ever study color theory or anything like that, you see all the different cool ways that you can kind of balance colors together. I love comic books, and in comic books, one of the reasons why Hulk is such a great character for comic books, and he's stood the test of time, is because on the newsstand, the purple and green, they really pop. They just pop out on the page. And there's all sorts of interesting things where you can bring out one color with another color if you study these things, because they're all relativities to one another. Okay, so these are some of the rhythms that we're talking about as we talk about things, and then we get into larger rhythms. That is sort of this as it expands. So the larger rhythms, the law of infinite compensation, which I like to do like double wavy line. The law of infinite compensation essentially, the law of correspondence Not infinite compensation. We're not there yet. The law of correspondence is essentially the larger rhythmic patterns. So it's the rhythmic patterns repeating again. So when you've gone through one cycle of music, you start on C, you end on C. You're going up the octave or you're going down the octave. That's happening all the time. We're only seeing the Roy G. Biv colors, but there are probably more colors that we can't see lower, more colors we can't see higher. And I'm not a good person to necessarily speculate on what that could look like, but there are all sorts of possibilities within the terms of the way these things correspond. Because as above, so below, which is one of the main things that they say with correspondence, and you will see the sort of changing into a new octave, into a new degree of a thing. And I had a really nice little diagram where I was kind of cutting a book in half and then cutting a book in half and then I kept going in like a little spiral. But eventually, as you went in this little spiral, you realized that you were kind of back where you started over here in this big half here. I could cut into there, cut into there, cut into there, and then I would be in a little sliver right here, which corresponded with this. It's smaller, but it's the same size essentially. So that's the law of correspondence. There's sort of higher rhythms that continue, and they will sort of like come back around in a similar fashion, but different, in a different octave, in a different degree. And really, this is happening all the time with you. Anytime anything happens to you, you go outside to go to work and you get mugged one day. Now, every day you go to work, you're worried that you might get mugged. Every day that you don't get mugged, you're worrying less that you might get mugged. Every day that you see a shady guy or you get mugged, you're increasing your worry of getting mugged. So these things are changing. You're going back the next day. You're the same person, but based on yesterday, will change what degree, what octave you are living in. Am I living in the octave where I'm feeling like I might get robbed again? Am I living in the octave where I'm feeling hopeful? I see the cops there every day, like it's been going good, life's good. That's how you change, and you will always change. You won't show up exactly the same every day. You're being affected by the repetition. The repetition is either reinforcing and strengthening a thing, and eventually going to lead you to some realization or whatever it might be, but you're always affecting your situation from what you're experiencing, either confirming it or denying it, pulling it back the other way. Um, so today we're going to talk about the law of infinite compensation. And as I usually like to say, the mind is infinite. And, if you lay down in bed at night, you can think for forever. You just think and think and think and think and think. And everything comes from the mind. Everything that we're experiencing, physicality is an idea. Think about solidity as water. It can be so many different things, right? It could be a gas, it could be a liquid, it could be solid. It's just, those are concepts. Every single one of them is a concept. So concepts create form, not form creates concepts. We're coming back, we're walking back on these things, trying to explain the form that's been created. um, you know, from these concepts. So the concept exists first. And if the concepts exist first and there's an infinite amount of thoughts and there's an infinite amount of what? Relativity to all those thoughts, right? There's balance to all these things, then there has to be infinite compensation for all of these things. And we're going to talk about compensation a little bit more in terms of a lot of different things about what it means and different compensating or whatever. But first, I just want to wrap it up with the law of attraction, or the law of attracting creation, as I like to call it. The law of attraction is the most superficial law of the universe. It's the reason why I started the class. The reason why it's last is because it's very superficial. To know the secret is to sort of be given the key, but not understanding what a door is or how to put a key in a lock. Um, Understanding all the things that I just went through is the key to understanding what a door is and what a lock is and where that key goes. The law of attraction is about lining up with what you want, the energy of what you want, so that you can bring it into you. But the larger law of attraction and the law of creation is about knowing that it's all you, it comes from you deserve it. Everything is being compensated for. So if you did anything wrong, whatever, don't worry. The energy's all worried. It's like, I don't deserve. If the universe thinks you deserve, if things deserve it, just think you deserve it. because the universe will work out the things that you might not deserve or the lessons you have to learn. But everybody deserves to understand their full being as a god, walking around the planet. Everybody's a creator. We're creating together, and we're kind of holding each other back by not understanding how powerful we all are in our creation of the universe. But we all are individually creating our reality. And to get into a place of loss, a place that you're not in control, a place that things can't just happen and you can't have everything that you want, is to create a completely false idea of reality. Reality is you are it. You are a small piece of it, but you're it. You're the thing that makes everything. And you're actually responsible solely for your reality. And so often it's hard to kind of change your reality very quickly because you are usually eating the fruit, harvesting the energy from the past. So before you started to become conscious, before you started to look at things a different way, you're living that energy. And you may be living out energy of past lifetimes. And plus, something that I'm going to get to later when we talk about compensation is there's energy and frequency going on in the world in so many different fashions that is affecting us. And if we're not aware of the effects that these things can have on us, we're defenseless to that stuff. So we get kicked around by that as well. But to truly attract creation is to know and appreciate what you are and how things really work. And that if the things that you want are in alignment with the oneness, not harming anything, and you can live in celebration and knowing that the thing is already in your pocket, even though you can't feel it there yet. That is the energy that you want to be holding on to. That's what you want to be doing. When you see Native Americans rain dancing, they're not adding a dance to their prayer to be, jerks. They're dancing in celebration of the bounty they've already received from the heavens. They're literally going, yes, it has rained. Ha ha. They're throwing the yay, it rained party before it rains. Get it? That's what you got to do if you want to attract the universe. And understanding the rest of the laws is what will really help you line up with how you should be thinking about that. So before I get into anything, I'm just going to take a look at the board here and see who's chatting with us. Hi, Mom. Okay. Okay, let's see. I got a lot of messages here. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Michael is joining us remotely, checking out the class. He's been here for everyone, but I did this from out of town and just doing it on my own. Let's see what we got here. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. Looks like we are doing all right. So, to begin, number 12, the law of infinite compensation. The law will eventually balance everything. And that's the thing. The law of compensation will balance everything. Law of compensation states that everything is being compensated for. As we stated, there's a vibration and then there's a relativity that exists to the vibration, right? So there's relative energy for every energetic state, and the universe is meant to balance things out. It can't go a little in that direction and then more in that direction and a little in this direction, but more and more and more in that direction and never explore that direction. The universe is destined, sort of manifest destiny, to just explore itself completely. So there is infinite compensation going on, and everything is working itself out. And it's a wonderful thing because so many people die before they realize that there's a positive swing, that they didn't have to die penniless. They could have hung in there a little bit longer and things would have turned around for them just naturally because they were on that swing, and that's how things go. And so often now that person will come into their next life, and now they've got a really good life. Now, but they're not going to learn the lesson about how this swing happens. You don't learn that lesson until you swing low and then you swing high again. And when people learn that, they see. And what is it, the thing they say about the most successful people on the planet, or the thing about successful people, they all have one thing in common: they never gave up, right? And isn't that such a stupid right answer? They never gave up. That's the difference. um so do, 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 do. This snapping is gonna drive that. The snapping is gonna throw in my brain a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm like a we're sensitive to that kind of noise. Um, okay, so let's see. So I want to talk about infinity, and it's funny because I always watch a few videos to get myself just in the state of mind of the conversation that I'm having, and see things that people have said about these subjects before I put anything to it. And I watched this little thing. I was a TED Talk on infinity. And it was so funny because I had already made my notes down about what I wanted to talk about infinity. How do I wanted to explain infinity? And he was explaining infinity in gigantic terms, just math that shows big infinity. And I want to show you the small terms of infinity that, to me, really unlock the nature of reality at its heart, which is that, every little piece of the universe, every little piece of God is infinite. And, you can prove that by looking at the concept of infinite small and infinite and individual numbers. Okay. So everybody will think about infinite big, like, oh, it can keep getting bigger and bigger. The universe is expanding. Okay. But go Ant-Man style. Let's go really, really, really small. You can cut a thing in half, and 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 you keep cutting the thing in half. Will you ever not have two pieces of a thing? It's a good question, right? And I don't know necessarily what the answer is when we're getting down to a molecular level of the universe, but at least conceptually, you could keep going. Even if we got down to the smallest particulate of the universe that the universe can hold, we could still intellectualize it being cut in half and all those sort of things. And every time we do that, actually, we're creating another infinite thing. We're creating two infinite things. Every time we split something in half, each thing is infinite. And you know how you can tell that? Um, when you look at the number one. So we go one, one, two. Okay. Right? So I can cut. Think of these two as individual. Like this could be anything. This could be bread. This could be something. Each one of these individual units can be cut infinitely, like I was speaking about, right? But even if we're just getting to the idea of the one by itself, and we cut it in half, now it's 0.5. We cut it in half again, it's 0.25. Cut it in half again, it's 0.12, whatever. On it goes. It literally, it won't disappear. That one is always one. You understand? If one itself, like going to two, this is an infinite state. This is an infinite state. Pi, infinite decimal repeating, right? These concepts exist because you can't delete anything. You can't get rid of the numbers. There, there are numbers, and every time something is broken up, if a stone is broken into 1,000 pieces, there's 1,000 infinite things now, and those things can get broken down into more pieces. It's kind of incredible. So you and numbers conceptually, ideas, the idea of the number one is infinite, and all ideas are infinite, individually infinite, and all individuals, people, are infinite. It's a very interesting concept to be coming around to, but you are a very, very, what's the word? Special and unique droplet from the ether and you're puppeteering a body. But the fundamental thing that is you, that is the energy, is eternal and infinite, and it's always growing and changing. And it came from the one thing, and it's journeying all around itself so it can eventually get back to being the one thing again. So, understanding that stuff, we're saying that basically the universe is always finding balance, and infinite compensation is the law that essentially gets us there. We're going to try everything until we get back to where we started, essentially, until we run out of things to try. It's another way to look at it. Continuing. So this law is kind of continuing cause and effect in the Hermetic principles. There's only 7 of them. Cause and effect is one, but compensation isn't thought to be one. Compensation will usually come like Kabbalah and other things like that. But compensation is a caveat beyond the cause and effect. And I could have maybe, if I was thinking about it slightly different, I could have put the law of infinite compensation at number 10, where I put the law of rhythm, and I could have put the law of rhythm and the law of correspondence like after that. Because essentially the law of cause and effect is coming after, it comes kind of before the law of compensation. You will be compensated for the cause. The effect will be the cause. I don't know. I wrote it down actually in a reasonable way earlier. What did I write? The effect corresponds. The effect is just in direct correspondence with your, where you are, where you're coming from, or in direct relativity to where you're coming from. So often, it really depends. You're dealing with other people's energy, so other people can be giving you energy coming from different wavelengths and whatnot. But what you can control is you. So you got to recognize that other people can control their own universe. They're projecting their own energies. You can't control their energies. And really the best thing that you can do is kind of give space and peace to other people and not be trying to actively get in other people's space, because you're going to end up quietly battling with them and getting the corresponding result. However, if you're constantly sort of giving out good energy, you're going to be getting the result that you want. You're going to be getting a correspondence for that. And remember, like I said, like people die too soon. Like they should have waited. Hang on longer. It comes back around again. The cycles of the planet. Everything is kind of going. And that's what we're doing. Like in life, we're like, oh no, it's really getting heavy. The pressure on my face. I'm gonna vomit. Oh, it doesn't feel so bad. It's pretty good. The pressure on my face again. Just that's it. We're all looping around, feeling this polarity of the universe. Mostly because we're just unaware of the ways in which the universe itself is polarized, the way in which we're polarized, and we're not doing anything to compensate for that polarization. Um, Yeah, give negative energy and receive it. What happens when you do nothing? The getting off of the path of the energetic vibration. When you don't respond to the energy that is coming at you, and I had something like that happen for me today. There was a lot of energy going my way in a certain direction, and I just kind of didn't accept it. And I think the whole situation ended up probably working out better for me. And I was nervous about how it was going to work out, but I just didn't really put too much mind to it, and I didn't empower the negative energy that was going into it. I didn't add to the negative energy. I didn't fight. I never fought. I was just like, I'll take the bad energy and I'll weather it. And it really did seem that going neutral like that allowed these things to just blow by me. You can fight, you can neutralize yourself, or you can encourage. And sometimes you want to do the neutralization. Sometimes you have to fight back to defend yourself. Standing up for yourself in proper measure at the time when something has gone down is very. I find most of us, we make the mistake of we just put off the speaking our piece. I mean, sometimes it's just a day too late, a week too late, but you really got to do it when you feel it. when it's most genuine, because people get upset when they feel like you've been holding things from them, and that's the tricky thing. Um, so let's see. Continuing, we choose a path away from the center of God, essentially, of the oneness, and then spin and swing and polarize back and forth until we lose momentum. Um, there's a lot of ways for us to think of this, like the balls that you hit, and or one of those things where you put the coin in, it goes, and it slowly loses momentum, right? Um, we have like the whole fundamental idea of us as consciousness exploring ourselves is that we were this one thing and we've gotten away from being the one thing. And on some level, we really miss that. We want to be the one thing, which is why we're always searching for balance within ourselves, because we don't feel like ourselves, because we're the one thing, but we're not the one thing anymore. Now we're one of the infinite pieces of the one thing. And we're always kind of looking to balance ourselves out. So what inherently happens is we swing one direction, which is usually masculine or feminine, doesn't matter which one, masculine, and then we'll get pulled back into more of a feminine direction because of things that happen there to show us our imbalance. And then eventually we get shown that we're in balance over here as well. And then we switch back. Or we try to adjust to a slightly, maybe a little bit less. And then we eventually switch back to maybe a little bit less of what I did before. And eventually the journey's the same to a place of balance where you're like, whoa, I'm all the things. I'm the right, I'm the left, I'm all the political parties, I'm all the people. And I've got an upset stomach because I'm fighting. Myself is fighting with myself. And I need to start coming at this from a whole different standpoint, because it just behooves me to help me figure it out in a better way. Once you can get to that sort of really beautiful centrist place, it's like, okay, well, how do we move this stalemate chessboard forward? There's got to be something we can do. And there's things you can do once you start to think outside of that box and think, well, I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm going to play this game from the outside. I'm going to create new rules where this doesn't exist. Other people can find me there. And that's really the thing. You want to create the space for you to succeed and for you to be able to think the way that you think, and set yourself up for the success that you deserve to have. Okay. I'm moving on. And if I have any questions about any of this stuff right now, feel free to drop them in and I will take a look. Isn't it a beautiful tapestry? It's like a really crazy, beautiful fruit platter, but also kind of looks like a weird squid. It's like strawberries, cut strawberries and stuff. Hey Paul, how's it going, dude? Lyle, Angela, Maureen, what's up, everybody? So, you're talking about entertaining the negative. Okay, so it's a double-edged sword. There are two sides to all these things. Always is the case. If you feel so compromised by the negativity of the people around you, and I'm not even saying it's so extreme like that. If you feel compromised, then yeah, you need to get away from it. You need to get away from it. You need to find a way to center yourself. Odds are, though, these people who are in your life who are making you feel not exactly centered are people who you are meant to live in your truth around without feeling personally attacked by their projection of their reality, which rubs up against yours. I had a wonderful spiritual retreat a few days ago, and I realized that, sort of like that we're all flowers and that we have fruit to offer, ideas and creativity and help. And what happens is we come in with our flowers wide open, and then we rub up against people. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be like really violent, where like we got beat up or we got raped or like anything crazy like that. Sometimes it could just be like I was in the room with them and I felt really uncomfortable. Like they made me feel uncomfortable, like very subtle stuff. And this subtle energy makes us close our flower. And then all of a sudden we stop offering our fruit. We stop offering this beautiful, fruit platter that we have. Right? We stop offering that fruit. Look at all the beautiful seeds. It looks delicious. Good enough to eat. It's going to be dropped down. Da da da. Here's the fruit for you. And that's how we are. Like when we're children. Usually, most of us, I believe, have that in us. We want to give, and and we start to feel like it's not appreciated. We start to feel like we're upsetting the universe, and we pull in our offering. And then before you know it, we're not really ourselves anymore because we're not really vibing the way that we should. We're not offering the fruit that we should. And we have to um, let ourselves remain open in the face of energy that we don't necessarily enjoy right now, because we have to change our perspectives to understand that hurt people, that everybody's creating their own universe and they're projecting their world onto us. I can only comment from my personal experience, whatever. I mean, I can also comment from my intuition and whatnot. I'm a little bit of a different character, and some people have intuitive abilities or unique abilities that give them insight beyond what's normal. But largely speaking, most of us are going around kind of going 2 + 2 = 4. And yeah, that's true. But there's so much more to see. There's so much more to understand. And to understand how that's true and also understand how it's not true at the same time is to just really understand the fundamental nature of reality and its polarization, and that it doesn't help us to sort of solidify the way we're looking at reality in any way, shape, or form. And really, to bring back around this whole thing, the point is, while yes, when we feel pressed by other people and we can't take it, need to get away and we need to get ourselves strong, centered. However, the plan should hopefully be to find our way back to those people one day and not feel the same way about it. We're there because we're different. Whether it is that we handle things different, that we think of things just completely different, and the way people treat us that aren't kind, it just makes us laugh because we go, oh, that's so silly. I hate that you're going to have to pay for that. I learned the hard way myself. That kind of thing where you just sort of go, well, people aren't perfect, and I wasn't perfect once, and everybody's not perfect in their own way, and I choose to see the best and hope for the best, and I'm going to go into these situations hopefully one day in the future and not feel the same way that I did when those things happened at the time. My family, my family, I love them to death, and because I love them so much, so affected with things they would say or things that they would think. I was so I was really kind of desperate to be perfect for them. I just wanted to be perfect. I just want to be the best older brother, the best, son, whatever I could be. At the same time, though, I've dealt with my share of problems and distractions, things that have gotten in the way of me being my best self. I really wanted to, and whenever I felt like I was letting them down from things that they would say, it was just like, oh, it'd kill me. And to a certain degree, there was times where I had to get away from them. Um, that wasn't because I didn't love them. It was just because I was fundamentally recognizing that they were compromising me, and I couldn't get my head together, couldn't get my head straight. I was just like I couldn't hear my own thoughts over theirs. And that's a real thing. And sometimes you need to figure that out. You need to figure out what your thoughts are. And I recommend that. But I would say if if that's something that you've had to do, always keep in mind that the hope would be that you will be able to reconnect with those people in a better way in the future, healed of the part of you that made you have to respond defensively or feel defensive or feel sad about anything that they said. Um, I guess that's it about that. Okay. So, oh, and let me see. There was a bunch of things that came in. Let's talk about this. So let's see. The news is the worst, will drag you down. Yeah, I don't really advise paying a lot of attention to the news. It's just like you can pay attention like a little, you scan the thing, but it's like limit yourself because if it bleeds, it leads. It's true. It's just a true thing. The nature of the beast is that the, the, there are only so many things that'll make you click an article, and the amount of coverage of things that are terrible. And there's been studies on this. It's astronomical. It's hundreds of percent more. Like they used to not cover things that were bad as often on the news. Now everything gets covered that's bad. So, take it all with a grain of salt too. You can think of it like that. Things are getting better. Things are getting better. If you haven't noticed, it's getting better. It's getting better all the time. And I won't ever give in to the delusion that says the good news is hard to find. Thank you, Sonia. I believe, I believe, I believe. Do, 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 do. Okay. I had to step away from my sister-in-law. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's just it stinks because so often they take it as a very big affront. And if you get into your right mind about it, you still are like, I need to get away from this person because I'm so affected by them. Sometimes people are our kryptonite, and they just like the way we've chosen to take things over time, we've become like kind of like PTSD for them and what they say. And people don't mean to do this to you. You're certainly not never your mother, your father, your friends, but most people don't believe they have this much power over anybody to begin with. It's really true. And I always try to see the best in people because most people they really just don't believe they have what it takes to hurt somebody else. But reality is we're all infinitely powerful, so we can. And you say the right thing, you can really hurt somebody. And sometimes it's impossible to know what the right thing that you might say that would really hurt somebody is. Really hard. It's really hard. So, let's see. Extra level of forces beside you, cycle, season, etc. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about this because in talking about compensation, this is one of the things that people miss. Let's say we're talking about the law of attraction, like, I want to attract this thing, I want to attract the thing. There are more energetic cycles going on than just you and how you're thinking about things. There are the seasons. There are the planet going around the sun. There are the other planets and how they're moving. And trust me, you have an energetic body. The planet has an energetic body. That energetic body is very much connected. And the big, heavy Jupiter, all these big planets moving around, it's shaking us up. We're feeling all this stuff. So this is why there's some funny quote about billionaires don't do their horoscopes, billionaires do. And I think there's a lot of truth to that because the to get on to what your horoscope means, what your birthday means, all these things, is to clue you into some of the energies that were the strongest and most present when you came into this world. And they determine a lot. They dictate a lot. And once you can see what you are, what kind of energy you have, and what the universe is doing, because it's kind of constantly changing and realigning. Tonight we've got a big eclipse of planets. We got like Jupiter and Saturn that are. I think if you go outside, you can see them as one bright light. Like when class is over, go outside and see if you can see outside, and the two planets should be so close together that they're super bright. My friend's doing a whole thing on it right now. Anyway, yeah, so there are a lot of extra forces in the universe besides you. So that's the thing. You really got to bow to the other forces at play a little bit because if you don't, um, you're just going to get kicked around by them. And this is the thing of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is one of the best fighters on the planet. Why? Because he would use your momentum against you so often. Here you come and he slides away. That's what we got to do. We have to understand, oh, here comes the horoscope. It's going to hit me in the heart. Aha, good thing I got my heart away. I'm going to have a part of low energy. Maybe it's a good time to take a vacation. If you know that these things are coming, that your energetic flow is going up or down or whatever, you're going to be able to do the things or make changes to help you see that. If you know that after the spring comes, uh, it goes into fall and then winter, and your fruit and your vegetables aren't going to grow, you know that you should grow extra and you should put them in storage. Or you know that you should figure out some other thing to do for food during that time because you're not going to have the thing because you know that that cycle's coming up. And that's what the horoscope is about. It's about figuring out what cycle you're on energetically so you can predict your energetic cycle and help you yourself in your life as you're moving forward. Okay. That's a big from that right there. Moving up. Now, so much of this, as I was talking about before, about yeah, you want to get away from that energy. I remember I wrote a little song for my mom. She might think it's funny now. I love her so much. But at the time, I was just realizing this sort of like thing of like that there's sometimes like you need to like get a little space from certain energy. I never went away to college. Most kids go away to college. They get like some space from their parents. I was a little bit of a mama's boy and daddy's boy, so I was very close with them. And when I said this, it was very, very innocent. But oh, I'd shared it with her because it was innocent to me, and she was like, ah, because I had to get away from you so I could do what I would do. Ooh, I hate to say it, but it's true. Ooh, 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 I had to get away from you. Ooh, 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 ooh. And there are times where we need to get some separation from people in our lives. And sometimes it's not them, it's not, well, on some level it is, it's how we're reacting to them. It is us always. But they couldn't have known what they were going to do long term, how something long term would affect us, some very small thing. But these things, they happen. So, you could feel innocent about that. But the coming to terms with it so that you can have them back in your life, which so often, it's heartbreaking to lose your mother or your brother or to feel like they're not close to you, friends, and not feel like they're close. You want those people back in your heart. And it's the changing of your perspective. And there was a big thing with me. There were certain things that for me, I really wanted my mom and my dad to do at various times. And I had this like little hope because I'm an idealist that, yeah, that hasn't happened and it's all good. I forgive them. But maybe something closer to my ideal will happen. And then when something would happen that was bad, I would get immediately mad at them for disappointing me. But it was because I had an expectation that I never put down. I never put down this expectation that maybe these people who I think so highly of are they're gonna surprise me in some way, and I'm gonna be so happy. And that was the thing, getting rid of that expectation. When I was a kid, I wrote another song. Called I forget all the lyrics, but it was like it's all about the expectation. Da, 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 da. What you think before you go. I know what you think before you know where you've been before you go, who you've seen before you know. So always keep your expectations low. And that's really the thing. To change your perspective is often to change your expectations. I realized that so many of my expectations that were getting in the way were certain bits about my father that he taught me. Like he was a rock star, he'd really earned his way in the world, and he sort of carried himself with a certain amount of like, I expect XYZ. If you don't give me XYZ, I'm going to be like, hey, what the hell? Where's XYZ? And I picked that up like that, like, hey, XYZ's not here. What the hell? I'm going to make a stink about it. And you really have to soften your perspective and your hopes and dreams for all of it. I've always said that it's good to have low expectations, to have no expectations. I tend to have no expectations for people to do anything for me. Um, and that's good. It does keep you from getting hurt, feeling like you're um, giving more than you're receiving. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So yes, changing your perspective to free yourself is changing your expectations. Um, like if you went out into the world and you expected that everybody was going to yell at you and curse at you and be mean to you, and that you were here to help them anyway, and you wanted to be just good and a good vibration, and you knew that just showing up and being good was going to help, and they're going to yell at you and they're going to curse at you and whatever, but you just don't really care. Look how freeing that is. That's the place that you really got to find yourself in, where you just don't view anything as being harmful or that you should be upset about something or you should, oh, that's it, I'm pulling back my thing now, I'm going to hit them in the face, and on it goes. Hey, it's a lot of fun. That's why sports exist, and that's why we love doing sports, and that's why we kind of get perpetually stuck in bad cycles, because on some level kind of enjoyable. And that's the thing about everything. Everything's polarized. Everything's fundamentally good and it's fundamentally bad. Okay. Because everything is inherently polarized, it's all essentially neutral or devoid of meaning. So if everyone is God and there are Democrats and Republicans, and then they're both right, because God can't be wrong, right? So they're both right. So who's evil? Who's good? Nobody's evil. Nobody's good. They're both fundamentally neutral. There's no the universe does not find either of these things inherently wrong. They are the polarized positions of God or the universe at this moment. So they're not wrong. They're just inherent. They are what they are. And everything in between there is something less polarized. But all of these things are fundamental, and acknowledging them as such is really important. Uh, you know, um, It's easy for the Republicans to break down the Democrats. Hey, the government doesn't do anything well with our money. You can't trust these politicians, and they're just going to waste the money, and nobody's really going to get helped anyway. And you're just going to add a whole bunch more red tape to the system, right? Then the Democratic people would be like, like they call them. Well, and then also they might shortchange them as socialists, and then the Democrats, might shortchange the Republicans as racists and say that they don't care about people and they're not doing anything to make the world better in any way, shape, or form. But those are polarized negative perspectives that are held by the Democrats and held by the Republicans. Those are not the truth. The truth of reality is that for the Republicans, they feel like they are holding true to freedom. Do not blemish this and add more red tape to this. We have this Declaration of Independence. We have this red tape in place so that our freedoms will not be impinged. Don't add more things to this system. The system does not do things very well. It is fundamentally corrupt in a lot of ways because it's very difficult for us to not corrupt the system. And we believe in picking yourself up by your bootstraps. And that is what they believe. Like it's not like a, hey, little black boy, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. It's a, hey, every little boy, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. That's what they believe. And if you watch like a Republican channel, which I only have actually recently, because I was actually most sort of racist against Republicans up until like sort of recently, because just so much of the liberal media really gives you a very, very, very negative attitude towards them. So I was looking at all sorts of crazy people's ideas, but I wasn't looking at them. And when I finally did look at them, I recognized that from their perspective, they're trying to be pioneers, and they're trying to be Boy Scouts, and they're trying to be do-it-yourselves, and they have a sort of different interpretation of things that people on the other side are interpreting, coming from the same place, but the interpretations are very different. And because that's what you're fighting, when you call that person a racist, I mean, they don't know what to do, and they just lose themselves. Um, you know, and then they get those, oh well, you're a socialist kind of thing. And then on the Democratic side of things, and this was the argument that I always used to have when I was maybe a little bit less centrist and a little bit more liberal leaning, was, hey, I know the government's corrupt, and hey, I know
the money keeps getting wasted and all these other things, but we got to try something. Let's do something. I see clear and present dangers happening. Shouldn't the government be a mechanism of positive change for the world? And that argument's a reasonable argument. So there are different people having two different conversations, and they're having these conversations completely unreasonably. And you need to get yourself to the point where you don't care how unreasonable everybody's conversation is. You're neutral. You just recognize that people are flawed, and people have a really hard time having the conversations about where their polarity lies, but they're not really fundamentally wrong, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat or they're Catholic or they're a Muslim or whatever it is. They're just coming from a different place. And you can be the change that doesn't view them as yelling at you or doesn't view them as insulting you or whatever it might be, because you feel very firmly about where you're coming from. And that's, especially for family, that's really what you got to do. You got to just get to a place where you feel good about where you're coming from, but you want to be with the people that you love, and feel safe putting yourself there without um, getting stuck in drama and getting stuck in old patterning that wasn't good or healthy for yourself, because that's what it's about. It's about unpolarizing yourself, getting yourself off of that, and finding the balance and using the ebb and flow of the universe to find your best life, to manifest it, to create it. All right, cool. Let's see. We just hit the hour mark, and I'm getting towards the end here. I'm getting towards. I advertised on my Instagram that I was going to tell you about the meaning of life, and we're getting there. Getting there. Excited to talk. Let's see. We can give a more rich meaning by accepting all the natural cycles and pre-paving uh, we have done to reap what we sow now. We can give a more rich meaning by accepting all the natural cycles and pre-paving we have done. Okay, so everybody knows that women um, deal with their menstruation cycles, right? And that it can be a bit of a thing where, they're upset or whatever. If you can come from a standpoint, and I know there are plenty of boys out there who know that, just sort of recognize, oh, well, that's a difficult moment for them, and I'm giving them sympathy. Well, it's kind of like you got to think everybody in the world is on their period in some fashion. They're all having that time where they're transitioning. We're all transitioning into higher vibrating beings where we're changing constantly. And if you know that, it behooves you to pull yourself out of the, oh, they said this, and because what are you doing? Why are you still playing the game that is just, it doesn't really exist? You're propagating it. They're propagating it. They can propagate it as much as you want, but you don't have to propagate it. So you can pull yourself out of that by giving yourself a more rich notion of everything. And the rich notion should come from the fact that every cause has an effect. So if they're yelling at you, cause and effect. If they're yelling at you, it's probably because you did something to them on some level. Something you said rubbed them the wrong way, whatever it might be. And you should be fine to speak your piece and be your own person. But also recognize that some people are, you know, they're weak, and words can really mess them up and really hurt them. But if you can sit there and kind of take it in the right way, not respond personally, like you've been personally attacked, you can just nullify the energy that's going for like I said, that problem that was happening in my life. There was a lot of negative energy coming towards me, and I never engaged in the negativity. And the situation took a long time to resolve itself. But when it resolved itself, I ended up not having anything, nothing bad happened. Like it never went to the place that it was sort of purported to go to energetically, but because I never went there. So if you don't go to where the fire is hottest, you're not going to get burnt that bad. So it takes a consistent energy in the opposite direction, which will be the energy you give now, but get tomorrow, but maybe not as soon as you would like. So often people do this and like, oh, look, I did it, but like my life's still the same. You have been sowing the seeds of the life that you are living right now for a long time in old lives, prior to coming into this existence, and from everything you thought as a baby and everything you thought as a teenager going into college, and all the different ways that you've formed the box of your reality. And anybody who's ever been a kid, and we all have, know that your box of reality when you're a kid, it's really small. It's a small box, and you keep growing and growing. Um, and it takes consistent movement. How do you build some muscle? How do you lose some weight? You consistently make a change to your diet. You consistently make a change to the activity that you're doing so that you can get a result, right? So that's what we have to do when we're talking about compensation. If we want to compensate the right way, we want to attract what we want. We want to consistently be thinking prosperously, consistently be thinking that's already mine. I have that already. I'm so grateful. Being able to connect to those energies that we know bring forth our right-mindedness, and can help us attract the world that we want. Consistently, we got to show up in that direction. And it's really right now, it's the opposite direction of the momentum that you're on. Your momentum has been this. You start to go, oh, my momentum's that. And then you start pulling this way. Realize what you're doing. You spent 10 years that way. So it's going to take a while of pulling this way before all of a sudden you got the momentum going your way now. And all of a sudden, you go right up the hill, right? Because the momentum's swinging with you. You're not working against it. All right. Are you guys ready? Is everybody ready for the meaning of life? Do I have any questions before the meaning of life? Let's see. Okay. Be like water, my friend. Yes, indeed. Okay. The meaning of life. The meaning of life is giving and receiving. It's that simple. It applies to everything under the sun. You can see it when it comes to the universal laws. What are we doing here? We got the one thing giving forth the mind. Now the mind is perpetually giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. Vibration, relativity, cause and effect, perpetual transmutation of energy, inspired action. Gender, balancing the giving and receiving. Rhythm, rhythm. These are all, it's just all giving and receiving, giving and receiving. When you breathe, you're receiving, giving. When you dance, you're giving, you're receiving, giving, receiving. When you do yoga, you're giving and receiving, you're giving, and it's everything in your existence is giving and receiving. It's give and take, compensation. And this is why when you stump up the compensation in one way, eventually, though, it flies back in the other direction, because this is just inherent that this compensation, this giving and receiving, that is the law of the universe, giving and receiving. You could think about it in a million different fashions. Everything in this universe, eating something, receiving, birthing something, giving, making somebody food, they eat it. Just that's all we do. You make a piece of art, people enjoy it, they receive it. Giving and receiving, giving and receiving, and giving and receiving can go down to the oblivion and the mind, right? Because you got oblivion and then you got the mind. And when the mind like comes to, it's oblivion that recognizes that now there's the mind. It's watching us. Oblivion's watching us. um it's the giving, and it's also receiving the information. It's the energy that perpetually gives, and it's receiving what we do with the energy, what the mind does with the energy. And the energy is receiving, the consciousness is receiving that energy from the universe and giving it back in various forms and shapes and all this other stuff. So what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is to give and receive. And I couldn't think of a better thing to talk about here at Christmas time, as we do this. But it's so small. You can give so much. A smile. I remember I used to be really fond of complimenting people on interesting haircuts. And so often it'd be like some goth kid or whatever. And I could tell that they hadn't gotten a compliment before. Nobody had ever said anything really nice to them before. And when I said something nice, their face lit up. I remember this one kid who was like an Asian kid. He had like a mohawk like that, and he was with like six other people. And I was like, wow, man, really like your hair. And this dude lit up. And I gathered in that moment that it was important for him
to have been complimented in front of these other kids, that these kids were ragging on him and they were making him feel crappy about his hair. And then somebody cool stopped and said, "Hey, kid, I think you're cool." And he went, "Yeah, thank you. I'm thank you." You know, he was really enlivened with power because he was given that compliment. And that's giving and receiving, giving our energy. We can give and receive negatively. We can give a punch in the face and we can receive another one. Or we can set out to give positive things and play in that game. And then we're giving and receiving in that world. So we can consciously choose to give and receive positivity and not grief, and to always be looking at the positive aspects of the things to the best of our ability to bring out that. I see. I've got some stuff going on. Want to thank you, Jesse, for opening my eyes and mind to new ideas, helping me to get smart. Oh, I love you, man. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mother Ayahuasca, and so many of the other sage people who got me here. My parents who set my foundation. It's remembering. You know, all of this. I really believe it is. You know, we come from the infinite source. We all have to remember some of the things we forgot. And this has mattered to me since I was very young to understand the way the universe works, and it's been a blessing for me to gather together all this information. And very cool tonight to do the show like this. We only got one more class left next week. I don't know if we'll do it similarly or if we'll do the last one in tranquility again to finish off. But for the holiday, I just made a little change. I hope everybody doesn't mind. I thank you very much for enjoying class with me like this. Hopefully, it was a little bit more intimate. I got a little bit more to chat about, but we can wrap it up in just a minute. Let me see what has been said here. Ah, well, this is lovely. This is me giving, and to receive comments is wonderful. And, that's the thing, giving and receiving. The meaning of life is giving and receiving. And I've known at least how important giving was, giving and receiving, but giving, because I'm not a good receiver. Like I tend not to be great at accepting help. I really like to offer help. And when I see that I can be of use, I go running in. Um, when I need help, I kind of like get shy about it and tend not to ask. But I've been trying to change that about myself over the past bunch of years. It's been very hard for me because I had to ask like for a lot of help, a lot more help than I've wanted to ask for. And like, coming up against it, like, oh, it's too much, too much. I like to give. I don't want to be receiving all the time. But it's so easy to receive. It's so easy to give in so many ways with kind words and smiles and little bits of energy. And as I've been processing this for a while, what I've really come to is that when you offer up your half of the pie, that doesn't mean that you've deprived yourself of half of the pie. That means that you've offered up 10 times more halves of pie for yourself in the future. That's what I believe, and I really do believe that is in alignment with universal law. You offer up your half of the pie. You give your half of the pie. The law of infinite compensation says you will not only get back the pie that you gave, but more pie. If you give to the universe, if you participate in the flow and the rhythm of the universe and become uh, participant. I want a better word than participant, but sort of a sort of worker bee for the universe. That things will come around to you. For a long time, I used to think about my music, like writing. Like when you're a songwriter, there's all sorts of things that like you think about, like I wrote all the lyrics and I wrote the melody, and like there's arguments to say like that I should get paid the lion's share of like the writing credit based on doing the melodic writing, which is we're not going to take it as an example. The lyrics are we're not gonna take it, right? But the melody is da 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 da. So the person who writes that, the melody, the way you sing the words, they're the people who are traditionally getting the songwriting credit. So when I've thought about that over the years, like different people have told me like, oh, don't screw yourself, and you take what you deserve. I appreciate that, but at the same time,
I was always kind of like feeling like I was like so like nickeling, diming all this stuff. I felt uncomfortable in asking people for money for my music in the first place. Really, always felt uncomfortable like money and art, in some fashion, especially when I'm doing things independently. And um, sorry, I just had some like deja vu and blew my mind a little bit. Um, what was I talking about? Can somebody please remind me? The deja vu just knocked me off my conversation path. Same as I always wait until asking for help. Oh yeah, getting on the path, asking for help. So oh yeah, so eventually I came around to with the songwriting of that. The more people I cut in, the more prosperity I was bringing to their lives, and the more I could sort of be like open with my royalties or whatever. Um, that it was watering other people's lawns essentially, and that not only did I think that that wasn't any skin off my back, but realized that doing that is the thing that breeds prosperity. It is the giving that brings the receiving. And the more you give, the more you get. And I wrote a whole song about that. I have a great song of dun 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 dun. My daddy told me, yeah, he only told me one thing. Said, listen clearly. I won't say this again. The more you give, the more you get. The more you get, the more you earn. And that is the truth. The more you give, the more you get. So just keep giving every chance you get. I know sometimes it seems a little hard. Don't give away the things like a crazy person. I find all the time that like I have things that like I know somebody would want, and like I want to give it away. I'm just like, oh, even at times when I don't have, I had two fires. I lost almost all my stuff. And there was, lots of, well, I'm still to this day, I don't really have a lot of things. Um, and I'm kind of giving things to my friends and stuff all the time because like things come into my life and I'm like, oh yeah, like I think so and so will like this even better. Like I have a book I'm reading right now and I think I'm going to leave it with my friend because I think he'll like it even better. It's really, really, I was inspired to bring it with me. And then I'm here and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, oh, I should leave this for him. He's going to appreciate this book twice as much as I appreciate it and love me for leaving it. And that's the thing, man. When you could do something like that, we can surprise somebody with some wonderful thing. If we were all just walking around surprising each other with wonderful things, surprising each other with money, surprising each other with help, surprising each other with prosperity in some way, we'd all be doing great. We'd all be perfect. That's the world I want to live in. That's the world I've always wanted to live in. I've not been so good at accepting other people's help, but wanted to be in the world where just help was always being offered, where that fruit that we were talking about is always out there. It's always being offered to everybody. And you got to live like that. So let's see. To wrap up these things, we were talking about the meaning of life, how it applies to all the laws, being giving and receiving. Guess what happens when you keep giving? You never lose anything. There's nothing to lose. That was the whole point of everything I was saying. When you keep giving, you're just basically putting karmic money in the bank. And when you keep taking, you're putting karmic money in the bank there too, in reverse. The law of compensation says it is going to flatten everything out. So, don't think that you got to punish some jerk or whatever who's taken more than his fair share. The universe is fundamentally built to compensate for what they are doing. It just goes. That's why you say like, oh, good always wins in the end because it's always flipping around. We're always going to get back around to the thing we're good with, and eventually neutral is going to win. Everything will always win. It always going to swing one way or another. Um, but remember, since the law is giving and receiving, if you end up just doing a lot of receiving, 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 and no giving, eventually that's gonna change. The universe, the circumstances are going to change so that the energy hole, the vacuum that you've created, is fixed. Um, Keeping it away so long, it's gonna come back strong. Okay, yeah. So the last thing I wanted to say about all of this and the infinite compensation is that, you know, this information can be a little bit overwhelming to get all at once. Granted, a lot of you guys have been with us for weeks now, and I'm so grateful to everybody who's actually watched every episode or, been here. We've got a few people who have, like Lee.
Thank you so much for being a part of this and being my encouragement to do it because it was such a great learning experience for me too. To do this. I was watching something the other day. It was like a top 10 list on top 10 ways to be smarter. And one of the last things that it said on the list was teach. And as I was listening to it, I was like, oh, yeah, man. I'm like, teaching the universal laws was the best thing I ever did for myself. It just helped to frame it that much better for me. And I'm really excited to do next week's class. As per usual, I don't really know exactly what I'm going to be speaking about, but we'll be focusing on the law of attraction, and it's the last class. I think we're going to be continuing on doing something like this in the new year, but maybe new uh, call it forum, possibly through like Patreon or something like that. Um, um, what else do I have to say? But basically, all this information about the universal laws and the way we are so polarized and swinging around, it's to say that if you have been feeling like you're down a negative path in any way, shape, or form for a long time, the really cool way to think about that is I have put so much energy in the giving and I have not received. It's just a matter of time before it swings back and I receive. The worse your situation, the better your possibilities for a better situation. So literally looking across at a friend and their situation's not as bad as yours. You're literally like, yo, dude, I've been through worse. I got the possibility that better things may happen to me. It's really true. And granted, there are exceptions to the rule. There are situations where it's preordained that that person across from you was going to get this big promotion, and it might seem from your perspective like that person's doing better. But trust that the law of compensation is compensating for everything. And if that did happen, it's because there was reason in their energetic field to compensate for that movement and for them to have that success. So yeah, recognize when you think you're dying, you're not. You're just surviving. And really, what you're doing is building a strong pull towards that which you really desire. And now that you're armed with the tools to properly align yourself energetically with that which you most desire, you're going to swing back like gangbusters to a place of openness and power and grace and faith, hopefully, because that's really what it comes down to. All of these things, everything, if you've been able to see, and really, I think next week is going to be a big, like, in conclusion week. But if you can see, all of these things, all of these laws create a cosmic spider web that's sort of accommodating for any energy. It's balancing itself constantly. You don't have to worry about that. Just have faith. Really. If you can start to understand how it's all working out, it's all balancing itself ultimately. You need to be a part of the inspired action. You need to act and you need to listen. Like you need to be in alignment with the principles that I'm teaching here about the universal law. But what the universal law basically teaches you is to have faith. Have faith. The universe is balancing itself out. Even if you weren't on the right minded path to better yourself from what I'm saying right now. Trust me, universe is going to kick you in the head in whatever way it needs to teach you whatever lesson it thinks you need to learn. That's the thing. That's what it does. We're just constantly learning things that we need to learn. And sometimes it can be painful too, because sometimes you're learning to appreciate something you don't have anymore. And oh, that can be a hard one. In a divorce or a breakup, something like that. Learn to appreciate what you don't have anymore. But that is the great thing for when you can get it back or get something similar like it back, because then you have the appreciation and you would not have had that appreciation without losing it. And that's why they say it's better to have loved and lost and never to have loved at all. Anyway, this is the end of my class. I hope you had a great
time hanging out with me, and I had a great time hanging out with you. I'm really excited to continue my week here with my friend, helping him with his business. And thank you guys for joining me. I hope you will join me next week as well for the final class. We'll talk about the law of attracting creation, and also join me for whatever we decide to do thereafter. This has really been a joy for me during a time that has been kind of difficult in my life. So, really grateful to all you guys for watching and having this conversation with me. It's my favorite conversation to have, and just to be talking about it in my terms out loud and know that some people are hearing it uh, makes me feel understood in some small way for the first time. And I am somebody who has generally really struggled to feel understood throughout my entire life, and this this was a change there for me. So thank you for allowing me to speak these cosmic truths to you, and respect the decade, I guess now, I've spent studying these concepts um, to save myself and heal my body. And I hope that they do a fraction of what they have done for me, for you. Well, actually, I hope they do 1,000 times more than they did for me. But even if they do just a little bit, I know that these concepts will open up your mind and change your life for the better in so many ways. So just before I go, I'm just going to make sure I don't have any questions to answer. Agreed. All sorts both. Yes, Lyle. Agreed. Angela, love you too, Angela, sweetie. Thank you. Ninja Kitty, thank you, Jesse. Fantastic class. Oh, thank you, sweetie. Ninja Kitty. What Ninja? What's your real name? Lyle. Oh, thank you, Lyle. Tim. Oh, Tim, congratulations. Tim just got engaged. Helped him with that. There's a video if you speak Portuguese on my page of Go With Me that's translated into Portuguese by Tim so that he could secretly ask his girlfriend to be his wife. And she said yes. I was so happy to be part of that. Congratulations, Tim. Love you, Michael. Thank you for being a part of the class. And me and you will do this together next week, wherever we decide. Amber, you're awesome too, sweetie. Thank you so much. Okay, guys. Oh, okay, Lisa. All right. Well, it was wonderful having you all here with me tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next Monday for the final class in 13 Universal Laws. End stream.